Hello, welcome to episode 4 of this YouTube series, Building an Effective Productivity System. This is the series where we're looking through my whole system for organising all of my stuff, for getting things done. In this episode, episode 4, we're focusing on notes. How do I organise my notes? Now, if you've been following this YouTube channel for a while, you'll know that the application that I use for this is UpNote. So I'm going to take you through UpNote and show you how I organise everything in there. But before we get to that, I've got a few things that I want to say about notes applications in general, because it may well be that you're watching this and you don't use UpNote. I'm going to try and keep things relatively broad in this so that what I say can be applied to other applications as well. So the first thing I would say is, as far as you can, use only one notes application for everything. Now, it may well be that you'll need to use more than one, because you might need to use one for work and one for personal stuff, depending on the particular rules of your company with regards to things like data protection and IT security, in which case you need to follow those rules. But I would say that generally speaking, if you have multiple apps for taking notes in and recording notes in, that can get quite confusing, both in terms of deciding where to put things after you've captured them, but then also in finding it later, because it just gives you more and more places to look for something in. The second thing I would say relates to how you choose the notes application that you use. Now, we're all different and we're all going to have certain different requirements for our notes app, but for me there are 4 things that are key. The first is ease and speed of capture. I want to be able to get things into it quickly, and I want to be able to get things into it without sort of a convoluted approach, and that's going to be true both on my computer and also on my phone as well. Second thing I look for would be the ease, the speed, and the flexibility of the different organization options that are available to you within the app. So notebooks, tags, pinning notes, shortcuts, that kind of thing. The third thing, which often isn't mentioned, is the capability of the note editor itself. Now, I'm not looking for sort of beautiful notes here, but I do want some ability to structure the individual note and put some kind of visual markers in it. The ability to find things again. Once you put something into your notes application, you don't want it just lost in the ether. So whether it's through search, whether it's through shortcuts in the app, links and backlinking, or just manually finding things, you need to be able to get information quickly as and when you need it. Think about how you organize your application. Whatever application it is that you're using, think about how you organize it. So I would choose a basic framework that you find on the internet, get from somebody else, and then tweak and adapt it to suit your needs over time. Try to be consistent as well with where you put things. So a phrase that you might have heard is like goes with like, and a home for everything. And don't be afraid to create a new notebook or a new tag if you need to, if there isn't an obvious place to put something that you've created. But then also don't be too trigger happy with this, or you could end up with thousands of notebooks, thousands of tags, and the whole thing just becomes a complete mess. Let's dive into UpNote and I'll show you how I organise UpNote. So here we are in UpNote, and I'm just going to show you, you'll notice here on the sidebar that for my sort of top level notebooks, I use a tweaked variation of Tiago Forte's Para system. So I've got the projects, the areas, the resources, and the archive. But I've also got a planning notebook and also this Effective Faith notebook for all of my content, and then a demo one is just something for some of the videos that I've done. Now, one thing I do want to say is in the sidebar, you can manually order your notebooks. If you click the actual top level notebook, you can change the order of the notebooks within it. But if you click on the notebooks thing, you get this, and these are always alphabetical. You can't change that in here. So I'm going to go through each of these in turn and just show you what's inside. So if I click on my planning notebook, you'll see that inside I've got my plans for 2023. There'll be a video on my planning process later in the series. I've got a few dashboards in here, which I'll mention in a minute. Some goals, which I talked through that in my previous video on projects and goals. And planning review just contains a few checklists, my weekly planning, my daily planning, monthly planning, etc., etc. And then vision and values is sort of thinking about high level thoughts and ideas for, what is my purpose, what is my vision. Then you'll see the projects notebook. I'm not going to go through this in great detail because I've just done a video, but this is where the magic happens. This is where a lot of my work gets done. So I've got an active projects notebook, a pause projects, and a future projects. If you want to see more about projects, then just check out the video that's on your screen now, and that will go through how I use these 3 notebooks. If I go into areas, you'll see that I've got 4 areas. Now, I plan to have a video later down the line looking at the question of areas of focus, life areas, life buckets, and the difference between areas of focus and life areas. But in here, I've organised them into these 4 areas: family, ministry, personal, and work. And I'm just going to show you what's in this one, just to see how the areas of focus that I have fit within those life areas or life buckets. So within my personal areas, you can see I've got a notebook relating to my Christian faith, a notebook relating to health and fitness. This one here is growth and personal development. Got a lot of notes in productivity. Then I've got some in career, rest, and thoughts and meditations, just things I'm thinking through. Let's go back here. The next top level notebook is this resources one. Now, this contains notebooks for things like checklists, book notes, you can see, articles, ebooks, purchase ideas, recipes, etc., etc. This is basically where I will put anything that it's not especially relevant now, but it may well be down the line, so it serves basically as a resource that I may draw upon in the future for future study, future learning, future writing, future videos, or future cooking. So all of that just goes in here in the sort of resources section. And then the last one is archive. That is basically just a place that I put notebooks that I'm finished with. One of the aspects of the para system is you're supposed to organise for actionability. So notes would be moved from place to place, notebook to notebook, from wherever they are to wherever they're most actionable. So if you're working on a project or a piece of content and notes from a book or an article were particularly relevant to that project, then you would move them from your resources notebook to your project notebook. But the beauty of UpNote is notes can be in multiple notebooks, so they can be in both locations, which means you don't need to move them from notebook to notebook. You can just have them in more than one place. And so that's what I wanted to show you with regards to notebooks. The next thing I wanted to talk about is tags. Now, tags are a tricky thing. I'm still trying to work this out for UpNote and exactly how to use them. I struggled when I was in Evernote as well in working out how to use tags as well. And I'm going to do a separate video on this later down the line, probably in my UpNote series, in how to use tags in UpNote. So I'm going to be brief here for now. As I said earlier, don't be afraid to create new tags if you need to. They're your friend, they're supposed to be helpful, so don't be afraid to create new ones. But I would, again, caution against having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tags. The issue is your tags need to be helpful. And so the question is, what is helpful? Well, a tag that is #note is not helpful because every single note in your Notes app is going to be tagged. And that's not helpful because it's too broad. But a tag that is too specific, like tagging the timestamp for the moment at which you're typing, that's not helpful either because that's too specific. And tags are designed to help you filter your notes. And if the tag is going to filter it but still have thousands of notes in there, that's not helpful because it's not filtering it enough. But if it's only going to filter it down to one note, then that's also not helpful because it's filtering it too much. You also are going to need to consider the type of tag that your app uses. So UpNote uses inline tags, whereas something like Evernote would tag the whole note. Those different types are going to have very different functionality, very different uses. Play around, have fun, and as I said, I'm going to do a video in a couple of weeks' time on how I'm using tags in UpNote once I've figured it out a little bit more. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about in terms of organising this is my quick access. Now, this is where I spend most of my time. You can put any note you want in your quick access, and what comes in here is mostly dashboards and a few other important notes that I access every day or almost every day. What I'm going to do for the purposes of now is you've got a command hub in there, and you've got month planner in there, this week's project, a master reading list, and then a couple of other notes. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you those in my demo account. So my demo command hub, you've seen it before. It looks like this. This week's project would look like this, and just show projects through the day and the week. And then my example of a month plan would look like this. You can see focus for the month, some family thoughts and ideas, projects and goals for the month, and then week by week focus. So those are all in my quick access in there. And as the series develops, I'm going to look at each of these in more detail, what it is, why it's there, and how I use it. And because it is now June, I can get rid of that one. The last thing that I want to talk to you about in this video is how I organise my notes in UpNote. I use UpNote for notes. Really, what I mean by that is knowledge, learning, thinking, as well as information that's relevant to my sort of study and learning. I don't use my Notes app for record keeping, at least not anymore. I used to send things like utility bills, e-receipts, policy documents from insurance policies, all of my records into my Notes app, which was Evernote, and I would file them in there. But I don't do this anymore. And there are a few reasons why. Firstly, it clutters up the Notes app with information you're never going to use again. You might access it if you need to reference it, but it's not usable information. Secondly, it occurred to me that your cloud storage, whether that's Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive, which is the one I use, and your email account, has all of the different functionality that you need to store all of this information and find it again when you need it. So all of my documents and receipts and everything just go into Google Drive. I've got an organisation system in there, and Google Drive search is amazing. So if I need that kind of stuff, it's just in Google Drive and it's not cluttering up my Notes application. But I do want to show you just a few examples of how I actually would go about organising notes. And to do that, we're going to go back into UpNote. So you organise notes in UpNote in your uncategorised section. So I've got 4 notes in here that are currently uncategorised. This is like an inbox. This is for notes that aren't in any notebook. So they're not in any notebook. And what I would basically do is I would start by asking a few questions. Basic one, what is it? Because it might not be a note. It might be that I've, in the heat of the moment, put an event in here, something that I need to be at, or a task that I need to do, something like that, or just an idea or a thought. So the question is, do I want to keep it? And for example, this one here, can I make a breakfast smoothie out of a full English breakfast? A thought I had whilst I was walking along, threw it into my Notes app. The answer to this question is you can, but you shouldn't. So I am going to delete that because I do not want to keep that note. The 3 that are left in here are all notes. So the question is, if it's a note, what does it relate to? Well, it might be best served being in more than one place. This one here is a recipe. So I'm going to add that to my recipe notebook. And there you go, that is done. This one is some books to read on church history. So there are 2 things that I want to do with this. Firstly, I'm going to create a church history tag because that's something that I want to study, and I'm just going to put that in there for now. And then the other thing I'm going to do is add this to my current work because this is something that I want to think about quite soon. But I'm going to add it to my 2023 reading challenge notebook, and I'm also going to add it to my study notebook, which is there. And then this last one, a video idea. just a thought I had, a video on how to track reading and book notes in UpNote. That bit I can remove. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to put it straight into my YouTube notebook. And there you have it. Those notes have been moved and categorized and organized exactly to where they need to be. And so there you have it. That's a very brief introduction overview of how I organize my Notes app and how, as part of my overall productivity system, I use UpNote as sort of like a hub for my second brain. You'll see more of that as the series develops and I look at different things a bit more specifically, but that's the basics of it. Thank you very much for watching. If you've liked this video, then please do hit that like button below. Please do subscribe to the channel. There's lots more to come. And there's going to be a couple of other videos showing up on the screen now that you can check out to see more of this kind of stuff. So thank you again, and I'll see you on the next video.